right, so check this out. I have my app running on two separate simulators. So basically on two separate devices here. And on this device, I am logged in as Rob. So if you come over here, you can see Rob here. Now on this device, I am logged in as Mike here. Okay, and so I can send a message from this device to this device, and something interesting is going to happen. So if I click here and I say, let's say, what's up, Mike? Okay, I send a message and that message is going. And what do we see? What's up, Mike? So I can dismiss this. I can come over here and I should see this message here. What's up, Mike? And I can send the message here, right? So I'm chatting with Rob and I can say, hey, Rob, what are you doing tonight? Send the message here. And guess what happens? Hey, Rob, what are you doing tonight? Okay, and if you take a look at the chat, you can see the last message. You can come over here and you can open this up and you can send another message. I'm not sure yet. Maybe watch the game. Okay, send the message here, and there's the message, and there you see the message, and you can see it says notifications from Supabase, and that's very important because these apps are using push notifications, and we are doing it exclusively with Supabase. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can build amazing, functional, very practical apps with push notifications using Supabase instead of Firebase. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I demonstrate on this channel are going to be available to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And if you're still not yet a member of our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community, then you should definitely check it out and perhaps consider joining. And you can learn more about it via the link in the description below the video. Now, if we jump into our Supabase dashboard here and I click on notifications, you will see that we actually have notifications here that are sent out to various users. So as you can see, hey Rob, hey Mike, what's up Mike, hey Rob, what are you doing tonight, etc., etc. And these here are eventually sent out as notifications. And so we are using Supabase 100%. We're not using Firebase for notifications. We are using Firebase's messaging for notification, but this whole app integration is done with Supabase. Now, let's talk about how you can do the same. Okay, so by the end of the video, you will know exactly what you need to do in order to have your push notifications work with Supabase. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do, this is very important, is you need to head over to Supabase docs and you need to search for push notifications. Okay, and you're going to be on this document here and you need to follow the instructions here. Now, initially you want to pick this Firebase Cloud Messaging because we are using Firebase Cloud Messaging under the hood. That is what we're going to be using, and you want to follow the instructions here. They're really good instructions. They I've done this multiple times. I never had any issues, and the purpose of this exercise here is to get your Supabase working with push notifications, essentially getting your Supabase to send push notifications for you. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to have a table called notifications. And when you create a record, so if you do an insert in that table, you're going to have this flow, right? You're going to trigger something on insert, and what you're going to be triggering essentially is going to be an edge function that will be sending push notifications by connecting to Firebase's cloud messaging. And in order to have this flow, you need to follow all the steps in this document, okay? And that's pretty much half the battle, okay? That's half the battle getting it to work. Because when you set this up, what's going to happen here is you're going to have this notifications table and this profiles table. And the purpose of this profiles table is to link a user to a token, to a messaging token. So as you can see, we have here two users that I was using to log into the apps, and these are the user IDs. And so if I double click here, you can see that that's going to go ahead and link us to the original users table that shows the original user, the user record, right? So this thing is 1D. And if we take a look, this 1D, this is this Rob, right? So one of the users is Rob, the other one is Mike. And the purpose of this table profiles here, and this is a table that you're going to set up, by following the instructions on Supabase side that I showed you, is to link users to a token, because when you're doing push notifications, you're not, you're not going to be remembering all these tokens that are assigned to every app instance. Okay, so if you have like 5 apps running, whether it's you running them, like I was running them myself, or like multiple people running them, right? So maybe you have a friend that's using the app, you have a customer, etc., etc. Each app instance is going to have their own token. And so instead of you needing to memorize these tokens, you have a mapping, right? So this user here has this token, this user here has this token. Okay, so you're going to have these two tables, and the second table that you're going to set up through the process of following those instructions and kind of going over the checklist, going through that checklist, is this notifications table. Okay, and so this is the table where if you create a new record and you're going to be pointing it to a user ID, it's going to look up the token and it's going to follow this flow here, right? So it's, you create a new record, it looks up the actual token, it triggers it, and then the trigger triggers this edge function. Okay, this is what you're going to have after you follow the instructions on this page. Okay, so once you have all of that done, the next stage is you need to get your FlutterFlow app ready and kind of configured for push notifications. And remember, guys, if you're using Firebase, right? So if I click on push notifications, you see I don't have this enabled, because if I enable it, then I need to configure Firebase authentication. And because we're using Supabase, I have Supabase authentication enabled. And so if I come over here, if I go to authentication, you see I have Supabase enabled, right? And so if you want to be using Supabase, including Supabase authentication and everything having to do with Supabase, you're not going to be turning this on, right? You're not going to be turning this on. Instead, what you're going to be doing is you're going to create a custom action called initialize messaging. And this is the code here. And essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be manually registering this device onto the Firebase Cloud Messaging Network. Okay, and all of this is done for you by FlutterFlow if you're using Firebase, but because we're using Supabase, this is something we need to do. And thankfully, it's just a couple of lines of code. So here I'm saying Firebase messaging instance, I'm requesting permission to receive push notification. This is something you have to do once per app instance. Okay, so once you do it for that app, if you don't delete the app, it's never going to request it again. It's always going to be the same. If you delete the app, if the user deletes the app, then they're going to see that message again, like, do you allow this app to receive push notifications or something like that. Once we get permission, we are grabbing this token here. Okay, and that token is going to be available, right? So when you launch the app and you have permissions, you're going to be getting this token. Okay, and now we have this token. And so if we are running this app here, and if I get out and if I come over here, I'm displaying this token here. Okay, I'm displaying this token here, and this token is going to be different than, it's going to be different. These tokens are going to be different across devices, right? So if I come over here, you can see that this user has a slightly different token, right? This is the user ID and this is their token ID. And this token is basically an identifier by which Firebase Cloud Messaging can find these devices and send these notifications. Okay, so this is something you have to do. Okay, so at this point, you should have this token. I'm basically saving it in app state, so we can display it on the profile page as a debug message, just to make sure I have that token. Because once we have that token, that's it. We're in the game, right? We are in the game. We can receive push notifications. Okay. The next thing that I'm doing is I'm using this package called Awesome Notifications in order to display this notification. Now remember, guys, whether you're using Firebase or Supabase, while the app is running and it's getting push notification, right? It's receiving, or it has received the push notification, it's not going to be displaying it. Okay, that is the case in both scenarios. And so if you want to display it to the user, you have to do it manually. Okay, so even if you're using like, FlutterFlow's built in, right, with Firebase, you enable it, it's still not going to display it, right? You have to do this. And I'm using this awesome package called Awesome Notification. I'm basically initializing here And then what I'm doing here is I have this on message listen, right? And this is essentially a callback, right? This function here gets called when a message is being sent. And at this callback, I'm just saying, received message, and I'm displaying this create notification. That is why you see these cool notifications, right? When the push notification has arrived, you see these cool dialog boxes there, right? So if you're chatting, you're going to be seeing that. All of that is courtesy of this amazing package here. So once you have this thing set up as a custom action, the next thing you need to do is you need to go into main.dart and you need to add it. Now I like to add it as a final action. You can also add it as an initial action here, right? So all you need to do is click here, select it. So if I delete it, I click here and I just select it, right? So I have my custom action here. I like to do it as a final action after everything else has been initialized, right? So it's initializing a bunch of other things, and then it's calling my custom code, right? This custom action. Now, once you have this code here, there's one more thing that you have to do, right? So what you need to do is you need to come in here and you need to click on permissions. And for notifications, I have this turned on. Very, very important. Send notifications. I believe if you are using the built-in FlutterFlow push notifications with Firebase, I believe it automatically turns it on for you. Okay, I don't remember, but I believe it does that. But in any case, you have to make sure that you enable it, okay? Because this tells the system that, we want to take advantage of this specific functionality. Now, there's one more thing that you need to do after you've configured all your backend stuff when it comes to push notifications, is you need to make sure that when you get that token, that token is here, if there's a record mapped to a username, right? Very, very important, because if you get the token, but you don't have a record in this profiles table, you won't be able to send push notifications, okay? Because it won't be able to do the correct mapping. And so if we go to our app here, in this homepage, right? So this chats is my homepage. I have this top level action, okay? And so if you click over here, you click here, you can open this up, and I have one call here. And so what I'm doing here is I'm inserting a row into this profiles table. Okay, so when the app loads, and remember, we got the token before, right? So we got the token even before the app has loaded the pages, right? That's part of the main app initialization. So we've gotten the token, then we open up the app, we load up the app. And the first thing that we're doing is we have the ID, right? So the user has authenticated and we have the token, we create a record. So if you come over here, I'm doing an insert row and I'm doing this authenticated user here, and I'm doing this FCM token here. Okay, this is very, very important. Now there's very, very important thing that you need to know, okay? Because if your app keeps starting up and it's the same user, you're going to have lots and lots of records here. And you do not want to create another record if it's the same thing, right? So if it's the same user and the same token, there's no need to create another record. And so instead of me doing it here and creating all these checks, there's a very clever way of doing it in Supabase. And that is where you can create a unique constraint based on either one column or multiple columns. In this case, I have a unique constraint on 2 columns. And this means that if this is the same as this and this is the same as this, basically we have another column that's going to be an exact duplicate of existing columns. It's not going to insert it, right? So if you come to our table definition here, you can see this constraint here, and this is very, very powerful because it saves me, a lot of checks, and just, I don't need to check in my code. Do we have that record already? Do we have that row already? And so as you can see, I have this constraint here, okay? This is the name of this constraint. It's unique on these 2 fields. And in order to create it, you can simply go to SQL editor and just ask Supabase AI query to do it. You can just say, hey, create me a constraint on these 2 fields, and it's going to generate the code, and you can just run it. Okay, and so this is going to make sure that you will never be able to add another record if it has the exact same fields of other records. We have a 2-field constraint, and so if the user logs in, so this user logs in, they have the same token, it's not going to allow a new row to be inserted. And that's fine. That's exactly what we want, because we don't want to fill it up with like thousands and thousands of rows or hundreds of rows anytime the user logs in and they have the same token from FCM, from Firebase Cloud Messaging. Okay, so that's the three things that you need to do, right? So remember this thing here for sending push notifications. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to set up this thing for receiving push notifications, and then you need to create a unique fields constraint essentially on this table here. Okay, so once you do that, you're pretty much good to go. So now you can build out your app. Okay, so let's talk about this app here. So this app here has two pages here, right? So we have the chats and the chat messages. And if we head over to our Supabase, here are the three tables that we're using, right? So this is the chats, and I have here the two users that are chatting. I have their two usernames, right? So this is nice for quickly looking up a chat if you want to display to the user, because we might have, hundreds of chats. But if I log in, I just want to show the chats that I'm a member of, right? So by keeping these as an array, it makes it easy to look them up, as I'm going to show you in a second. And then I'm storing the last message on this chat so that I can display it to the user. Now, the second table is this chat messages, and it's kind of self-explanatory. We are essentially storing messages, and we have the chat ID, the user, who is the user that sent the message, and the actual message. Okay, so just three fields here. And last but not least, we have this users info, which is an extension of users, right? And here's where you want to have additional fields that you want to link to users. And what I'm doing here is I just have another field called username that I am, just storing on a user level. And this is a classical one-to-one relationship. And the reason I want to have a username is, just to display it in the app, right? So if we go to the app, you can come over here. You're going to see that we have, we're using it all the time. So here's the username here. And if I click on this, it says chat with Mike, and I'm using the username because, like an email or something else just would have looked really weird. And so I have this username here. Okay, and that's the only tables that I'm using, just three tables, along with these notifications and profiles for sending push notifications. All right, so let's jump back into FlutterFlow. Let me show you the meat of the app. Now, in this list view here, we are displaying all the chats, but we're also filtering them by a specific condition. So remember, we have there a field called users that contains a list of usernames that are part of the chat, that are chatting with each other. And so this users, I'm checking for this username, right? So this username is this Z users info. And what is Z users info? Well, it's this user right here. So if you come over here, I'm basically opening up my auth. This is this auth user, and I have another query to get the username, right? Because username is on another table. So I just have another query. And now, the results of this query are available on this whole page. So I know the username of the logged in user. So if I'm logged in and my username is like James 2000 or whatever, that is what is going to be in this query here. And that way I can check to make sure that in these chats here, that James 2000 is one of these users here, and that is exactly what's happening here. Okay, and next I have this code expression here that actually is really nifty, because what we need this code expression for is we need to display the other user. All right, so we have two users, but one of them is me, and I don't want to display myself. I want to display the other user, right? So that way in the app, if I come over here, we're showing the other users. So, you're going to have two users, James and Mike 2000. If I'm logged in as James, I don't want to show James. I want to show Mike 2000, right? So this code expression does that, right? Basically compares the authenticated user to the first record in that list, right? To the first item in that list. If they're the same, show me the other item. If they're not the same, show me the first item, right? That's all it's doing. We're displaying the last message. And when we click on this, right, we redirect into chat messages, and I'm sending it the chat record, I'm sending it the other person, and I'm sending in the other person ID, because that's going to be useful on this page here, on this chat messages, right? right? Because we want to display it here. And here I have a condition. I'm basically saying other person is set, then say chat with the other person. However, if this is a new chat, we haven't saved it yet, I'm just saying new chat. Okay, very, very simple. And here's our normal flow that I've done many, many times. So if you've seen my previous videos, you know exactly how this flow works. I just have basically a query where I am listing all the chat messages for a specific chat ID, right? Because if we come over here, we have these chat messages, we have this chat ID, right? So in this case, these are all messages that are part of the same chat ID, but you're going to have, you know, hundreds or thousands, tens of thousands of messages with different chat IDs, and you don't want to list all the messages, right? That's a security issue. You want to filter it by this ID. And this is that chat row that we passed. And then depending on, you know, if this is my message or the other message, we are going to be either displaying the other message on the left justified, or my message right justified, which is kind of how, you know, chat apps work. And so you're never going to have two messages on the same row. You're going to have a row here, maybe a message here, another row here, maybe a message here, or multiple rows with, you know, messages. You're never going to have two messages, right? Because you're either going to be left justified or right justified. And here's where you enter a new message. And then we have the send message flow, open this up. And here we are seeing a couple of things. So the first thing we're doing is we're creating a record in chat messages, chat ID, user ID, and message. We're also updating the row, right? So we're updating the last message on the chats, the chat screen, right? So that you can see that last message here. So if I come over here, I can see this last message here, okay, on the main page here. So we're doing that here. Next, we are sending the push notification, okay, and we do that by adding a record, inserting a record in this notifications table. And here we're putting in the user ID, which is the other person ID, right? Because we don't want to send it to ourselves. We want to send it to the other user. And then the body is the message, the input message, right? And so this is the sending message flow, and this is going to be configured once you follow instructions and all of that, where you know, if you create a new record, you trigger an edge function that goes ahead and sends this push notification. And last but not least, we basically clear the input field so that we don't need to, you know, erase the message, delete the message here. We can start typing again with a cleared input field. And that's pretty much it, right? So the chat app I've done before, pretty standard, right? And obviously, if you're going to be a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to all of this very easily, so that you can clone and kind of tinker with it. But the main thing that I wanted to show you guys is the push notifications, right? So you're going to configure your send, you're going to configure your receiving end, and you're going to also work on your, make sure that you have that constraint, so that, you know, you won't be able to create a new row if the fields are the same as any of the previous rows. Really awesome feature that, you know, one of the many reasons why I love using Supabase for all kinds of projects. And speaking of projects, the best way to kind of work on a similar project, or whether you want to build a more complex app, or, you know, you want to build a similar app, or you just want to, you know, implement push notifications in one of your other apps. Maybe it's not even a chat app, maybe it's an app in a completely different niche. Well, the best way to do that is by viewing and or cloning this app. And you will be able to do just that when you join our amazing Patreon community. And remember, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to a ton of things. I mean, there's so many people on there. There's, you know, so much resources, so much content on there. So you're going to get access to this app. You're going to get access to pretty much all my apps that I you know, build tutorials around, kind of published on this channel. There are, I think, more than 160 apps so far on there. And that's not all. You're also gonna get access to other amazing content, such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, and my Patreon supported masterclass series. And these are essentially tutorials that go above and beyond the stuff that I have on YouTube. And so I think one of the next ones that we're going to be doing is going to be about push notifications. And so if you're serious about no code, you're serious about building apps, or you just want to support this channel, then you definitely need to become a member of our amazing Patreon community. Because when you do that, you're gonna get access to a ton of things, and you're gonna be a part of this incredible community where everybody's kind of helping each other to kind of get over various challenges and figure out how things work. We truly have an amazing community, and if you're serious about no code, then you're gonna love being a part of this amazing community. So if all of that sounds like something that you may be interested in, something that you're gonna get value out of, then I seriously encourage you to check it out and consider becoming a member. And you can do just that via the link in the description below the video.